When did we want to use it first?
Opioids first, yeah.
Let me just double check.
Ryan, are we good?
Why do I smell baby powder? You smell lavender. I put my.
I apologize. I thought you were back in the room.
Down on this then.
I'm like, something strong, bring it back. I don't like baby powder.
But my, it's the.
That's right. That's all right. Yeah.
Are we broadcasting yet?
I believe we are, yes.
Yeah. Sounds like baby powder to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Lavender vanilla. I don't smell baby powder.
Maybe
It's
I'll-
lavender vanilla.
Oh. All right. Well, welcome everybody, on to meeting two, which is a work session. So I'll go ahead and call it into order at 6:15 PM on November 21st. Thank everyone for being here. And I believe our first topic of the day is the opioid settlement discussion.
Yes.
Yeah, so I'm gonna turn it over to David to walk us through this. The good news is this means we got some money.
Yes, we do. So far, to date, there was a settlement, just a little bit of a brief history, and why is this not? Brief history, in July of 2021, the state of Oregon reached an agreement, national lawsuit against companies in their role in the opioid crisis. Yeah. These lawsuits held manufacturers, distributors, and retailers accountable for the epidemic that's occurring. And the funds could be used, these funds are a little bit restrictive. They can be used for a wide variety of opioid prevention, treatment, recovery strategies. They're listed in probably about a 15-page, I would want to say exhibit that just kind of lists all the different areas that we can spend the money on. To date, we've received about $62,000 and we have 5 years to spend this money. So it's not like we have to spend it right now, but it's, it's time to have some discussions on how we can spend the money.
Do we expect to receive more?
Yeah, there's still a little bit more, but there's some of these pharmaceutical companies that are going through bankruptcy, so we're kind of having to wait.
How much? and when?
Yeah, kind of see how that all settles out. We are required to report annually at the end of September every year on how we spent that money. We haven't spent any money to date yet.
So the report was just, we didn't spend it yet.
Yep.
And we, to be clear, we have 5 years to spend it,
Yes.
starting.
Well, we received some of the funds, it was probably about a year and a half ago, so we're on about 3.5 year clock. I mean, we received the funds intermediately throughout the year. It's not like we're receiving monthly payments or anything like that, so it's kind of sporadic.
Yeah, so without having looked at the complete list of authorized uses, are there any restrictions that it has to be spent within our jurisdiction? Or if there's, I'm just making this up, but if there's a center that's doing stuff with servicing Sherwood outside of our area, we could use it.
Like Washington County.
So Washington County.
Yeah, and we had an option early on whether we wanted to just give the money to the county or if we wanted the money. And the decision was to get the money within the city. And our thought process, working with Ty and Keith, is let's try to fight this issue within city boundaries. Because we have some ideas, and I'll bring that up on my next slide here, but ultimately it's up to council's decision here. Some of the uses of the funds, it's a very vague term. Opioid remediation is really, we have to focus on whether that's the Narcans that we could buy for the city or for the police department, training for first responders and the use of these schools. And like you said, other jurisdictions, outside prevention programs, whether we want to look at media campaigns through the SROs, the police department, public education, because it's pretty interesting. Even talking to some of my neighbors, they don't realize like fentanyl, that dust, it can cause an overdose to, if you inhale that dust. Prevention programs in schools, drug disposal programs. I think you folks offer that every now and then. And then additional training for first responders. And just more educational law enforcement. So we're kind of trying to focus on how could the police department utilize these funds to educate the schools, educate the public, and help fight this epidemic within the city limits.
I mean, we just kind of had that discussion with our joint school meeting with the school board about
how we can educate the parents and the students, something like that.
Yeah, because even I have an 8-year-old daughter. She sometimes will reach down to pick up a piece of trash. I'm like, no, that tin foil that has burn marks on, don't touch that, please. And you could even use it on training for city staff, kind of on the use on how to deploy Narcans if you were to come upon someone that you may think that's experiencing an overdose, so. Those are, I mean, there's a lot more, like you said, Tim, you can use it for other agencies where they specialize in whether it's treatment, folks that are addicted to, these various drugs. There's expanding syringe service programs. I mean, there's so many various uses. These are the ones that I could pick out when I was kind of going through that of how we would utilize it in the city, and the chief could probably add a little bit more as well, if you'd like. Not to put you on the spot, but
No, I think you touched on it. Well, and we talked about it at the school district, utilizing technology and equipment that we can get out there and do PSAs. We can have interactions with students. We can film and do a lot of different things that can reach grade schoolers to high schoolers in combination with obviously the adults. The one thing that we're learning with fentanyl is it's continuing to evolve in its form and how it's getting here. And that's a really big deal. And we're trying to stay up on that and just trying to get out in front of that when it does come and we get that information, and being able to get out and make sure that people know what to be aware of. And, you know, in combination with obviously the Narcan and what we're deploying and how we're deploying it and how often we're deploying it. And the one thing that's not up here is these always go in combination with AEDs. I think we do a really good job in the city. Obviously, we have them in all our cars, but making sure that as a city as a whole, that we have those two pieces available and to put on the training for here. And obviously, if there are other services that we can be unique in, obviously at a smaller scale, that we might not be thinking about right now.
I mean, $60,000 isn't a huge sum of money, right? It's gonna go fast, whatever it goes to, so.
yeah, I mean, what are AEDs? Are they about $1,000 or?
Yeah, $1,500.
1,500. The Narcans, those expire after so long, I
Yeah,
would
I
imagine.
presume we already have, we have those things, so we already have a budget for AEDs and Narcan. I assume we replenish our Narcan stock regularly already.
so we used to be on a county grant. And it was all donated to us. We're funded. Now we're on our own. So that's all gone away. They're not very expensive, but
Yeah.
yeah, we're out there. And I think actually we acquired some in another grant for the city as a whole. So we're out there trying to find that, but having the ability to go out and buy it is nice because you and I, we can walk into the pharmacy and get it for ourselves. But for law enforcement, it's a little bit more difficult. Weirdly enough.
That's
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I like the idea, the second bullet point, that appeals to me a lot. You know, figuring out how do we do some of these programs like on the ground in Sherwood, right? In the schools and, you know.
One of the things I think came up at the school board meeting was bringing in the new youth advisory board in conjunction with us and coming up with just different ways to reach out to those students in a unique way. And using some of this money with, you know, whether it's cameras or whatever it is to get there.
Is there, I mean, is it just cities and counties getting these funds or school? Is the school getting the funds too, or is there opportunities to work with them to leverage both pots?
You know, I'm not quite sure if schools are receiving those. I know counties, cities, and the state's receiving a pot of money, but I'm not quite sure schools, because they reference like they can use towards school programs, which was really interesting. So my guess is maybe not, maybe the schools aren't, but I don't know.
I don't think they are either. I just, you know, as we're partnering with the school district, that's where we're some opportunities.
You mentioned we hadn't spent any of this yet. Have other jurisdictions done it? And if so, like, I almost want to say, what is the biggest bang for the buck on this? Because it's such a complex problem. Is there a way, like, do we have any data on whether the prevention things are working better or the, you know, injections, or is there any of that, or? I don't know, do you have?
Well, I was just saying that the different jurisdictions are getting different amounts of money based on the harm that some of these products caused. So some jurisdictions like where I was working before, they did mental health officers, right? But there was a little bit more money there to be able to do that. So $62,000 doesn't go as.
Right, but I'm just saying, even if it was like categories, right, is there, like, if we said, if we just gave you the magic wand and said, spend it where it would do the most good, would you know where the most good would be, or would?
No, not
Spread
necessarily,
it.
not necessarily. I mean, we would, I think I keep going back to this education component. That's
Yeah.
where I see probably the most impactful.
Yeah.
Piece is gonna be, for us, in our community. Somebody else is gonna have a different take on that.
And it doesn't have to be expensive in my mind, right?
No, but you have I mean, the nice thing about this is we have the ongoing ability over the next 3 years to stay with it, because we can just kind of use it as we need it.
One time.
Yeah, versus having to
Shouldn't
spend.
need to spend a bunch of money on marketing or.
No.
But you can
creating
spend,
fancy-
you can spend the money on cameras and equipment so that you can create the PSAs. That's part of what the money can be used for, as long as you're using that money for PSAs.
Yeah.
You could not have cameras.
There's also the idea of mental health first aid. If you were to do something along that like mental health first aid,
Oh, first aid.
if you were to use it in training. But I was to respond to the idea of training, where would you start at the elementary school, or are you talking more broad training or PSAs? What?
Great question. I think it's all of them. Without sitting down and having a deeper conversation about it, yeah, we want to obviously reach them all. The greatest impact we know right now is in the high school and middle school. But starting young is obviously as important as well. So, we would be creative in that, with that licensing, how we do it and with whom we partner with to make that happen, but
And parents,
yes.
parents are asking for this. They don't
They are.
even know what to look for, right?
I like the idea of the youth council, we talked about it, so saying, hey, let's give them a bucket of. Are we asking? Or is that at the end of the presentation?
Well,
As to how to.
Well, is there, Dan, Keith, do you guys have any thoughts?
For
Questions?
Washington County, they have centers for prevention as well as to help people. Do you have any numbers on how much we send people from Sherwood there? Because we don't have our own centers here, obviously.
I don't, not on that. No, because there's center, I mean,
Brand new.
yeah, I mean, we have, Tigard's got a center, Beaverton's got a center, I mean, there's a whole host of them that I don't think there's really any data out there that I've seen, at least in the levels that I've.
Because that would be, if we're using those facilities, that we can give some of our funds to them, I think that would be.
The centers probably keep that data and probably some requirement that they do, especially if they're getting any sort of funding from state, county, anything. They probably have to keep records of who they're serving and what boundaries.
I don't know if they're even open yet, but there was a nice article in the Oregonian about what Washington County's done, where they've done a center in Hillsborough and Beaverton, and one's more of a facility where you're just there safe to try to get through your high and, and not cause harm instead of being in jail. The other is more of a really truly treatment kind of a thing. Yeah, it'd be interesting to know how many folks I'm sure would have gone to those facilities, or we anticipate, and potentially some slice, 10%, maybe, say that we're contributing to help, jumpstart those in the early days. And then, so we're,
Do they need it? I mean.
and I don't know the answer.
Yeah, I mean, if they're funded.
So I know the county with state or federal dollars, they built these things.
Sure.
And then one nonprofit is tasked with running them. But so not to give any commitment, but maybe we ask.
Yeah, no, I'm just, if they already have a funding source, from the state vote that we all took a few years ago, and I'm not like, what's $10,000 gonna do, right? I mean, it's gonna be gone in a day. Versus if we're trying to stand up programs here.
Yep.
Locally, it might be more bang for it.
Yep.
It's interesting because I think what Ty's talking about, I mean, replenishing our Narcan supplies would be great. But I have a feeling that's a very small piece of this money. But, you know, the education, you know, is all about catching people on the front end and preventing. That's starting as opposed to with some of these centers, they're on the back end. So if there's some opportunities to maybe send a little money both ways, if they need, I think we just need to understand.
Are
What's
you
going
thinking of
on.
the Hawthorne Clinic? Is that the name of it?
I don't know.
Hawthorne? It's the name stuck in my craw.
Tired has compassion,
Just compassion.
and I don't know if that's a county
It's,
run facility or if that's the city's.
it's a, no,
That's
it's
a nonprofit,
organization.
yeah, okay.
And it's really not,
More for the,
it's more houseless. Yeah,
I know they do take
they're getting ready.
some of that.
Yeah, they're building on and to add those services, but yeah. I think it's the Hawthorne. I'm gonna look it up because it's gonna drive me crazy.
And so really the goal tonight was just to talk about these, you know, these funds are, I like to call them restricted for specific purpose. Just, you know, Keith, myself and the chief, we've been having a few conversations about this. I think it was in October, but there's been no final. We want to kind of see what council thought of some of the ideas that we had, of potential use of these funds. But it sounds like you folks want a little bit more data on.
Well, let me see if there's some consensus around that idea. I think we need more data on, but it was, I can't remember the name of it. It's-
Hawthorne, it's the Hawthorne Center.
And how impactful if we were to get part of it up, and then I think I heard a lot of agreement that doing some educations, leveraging our SROs and relationship with school and our student youth advisory board is a great idea too. If staff heads down that path and just comes back to us with a plan, is that okay for everybody? Do we need to have another work session, or you can just let us know what the plan is?
I mean, I really like the idea of the prevention program, especially like, I don't want to spend a media campaign because you'll spoil the money and be gone. I'd rather do like create, like you said, the cameras, that get the resources to create assets that can be continually reused for months and years, right? That's a way more bang for your buck than running ads.
and figuring out how to get them into our schools.
I gotta believe there's some, again, some local PSAs, but some national PSAs that we can reuse. To help, you know, with police, social media, city, social media.
Other marketing materials, Renee, you were gonna.
If it's still the same, when I was in the prevention arena, I served in that arena for like 25 years. We had programs that focused more on the fourth, fifth, and sixth graders to get them before they started using. I don't know if that data is still relevant, but if there's a way to get into those grades with some prevention programming, that would be really cool.
Like the DARE programs back then.
Yeah, it's different than, well, it could be similar, but
That hit us in elementary school, those type of programs.
I'm with Doug. I think that it's way cheaper to prevent than to treat at the end. And I don't know that even if we gave all this money to that center, if that makes a difference, but if we could create assets that are evergreen or ones that could be updated, if they change how, you know, it's coming in or whatever, but it could be assets that would be, it feels like a bigger bang for the buck. So, and frankly, it feels like we're also able to give our youth committee something that has real meat on the bone, right? It's a real thing. Hey, this is a problem we're trying to solve with the youth in our city. Help us solve it. It's not just you know, what color should we paint the bathrooms, or, you know what I mean? It's
What should we name the new grade school?
yeah, well, that's gonna probably cause a fight, but you know what I mean? Like, it's a real problem, and you can say, look, youth, we're all old people. We need to figure out how to communicate with your peers and your younger brothers and sisters who are in fourth, fifth, and sixth grade. How do we do that, right? And have some money behind it to give it some teeth.
So consensus I'm hearing is prevention, evergreen assets. But at least go find out what.
Yeah, it would make a
What
difference.
those centers could use and.
I assume we would
Yeah.
ask our youth advisory board if it's something they're interested in. We can't demand that they do it. I mean,
Also, what we could do too is we could see about some of these funds over the next few years, and if we have funds left over, you know, to make sure that we utilize all of it. I mean, the centers could be an option at that
Yeah.
point too.
but it would be nice to know the data. How many people from our service area?
Dan, any other thoughts?
No, that's great.
Would it be safe to say then, because I know the chief would have to. He could start utilizing a little bit of this money I'd bring in front of supplemental budget, the first supplemental budget, at least get some of the equipment and stuff in order to start to. Kind of,
Yeah, I think that's.
Getting the
consensus,
assets,
and
yeah.
Then,
and then we won't spend the whole amount, but we will look at some data too to come back.
right, in terms of decision, that would be a
Yes.
budget.
Yep.
So, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Interesting information, and thanks, chief. For the perspective. All right, well, we are adjourned. No, we got one more item. Oh, yeah, sorry. One more item. I was all excited with it. Thank you.
5-minute meeting next.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Our work session going here, we got our second topic tonight, which is legal counsel staffing.
Yeah, so
We've got
this
our city attorney here to walk us through this.
will be fairly brief. I just want to see where council wants to go with this. So I'm going to be, as you all know, I'm going to be deploying next July. I'll be gone for about a year, which begs the question, what do we want to do in the interim? So we've had some conversations internally. I wanted to bring it to council. Because ultimately, you know, this person, whoever it is, whether it's outside counsel or somebody that we bring in, will be working directly with you. You obviously have a say in who that is or what it looks like. So with that being said, I wanted to kind of just lay out a little bit before we get into the meat of this, what my general month looks like as far as work hours. I had Emma, our law clerk, go through, and she keeps track of our time in the projects that we work on. And so it's good practice for her, because when you're in private practice, you live your life in 6-minute increments. So with that point one, yeah, so 6-minute increments, 1/10 of an hour. So that's kind of the basic what we have. So that averages, for me, it's about 53 hours a week. And that's just an average since I've been at the city. As you can see, most of the time is spent in meetings. And then you guys have this slide. So if you have questions about that, that's most of where my time's allotted. A lot of it's meetings, because I need to stay up to date on what's happening. As much as, you know, I'd rather not sit through some of those. It is important for the city attorney to do that. And then general staff inquiries and talking with you all. So that's where the bulk of the time is. We do have a law clerk now, and she, because she's in school, she averages about 11 hours a week. She's just done a fantastic job with handling our court. So Emma is a certified law clerk. She prosecutes all our municipal traffic tickets. That's been not only a great experience. What's that?
What's a record?
I think she's one, no, I want to say she's 3-1. Yeah, and it's been a great experience for her. Yeah, in her record, you know, I know you're joking, but
Does she get to stay on if you're not here? She has to be with a,
that's right, yeah, so. Yes, I think she could, to the extent that we have a supervising attorney that would take, I have ethical responsibility for her. So anything that she would do wrong, if I don't supervise that, I'm the one that gets in trouble with the bar. So finding somebody to take that on. Now, she will be taking the bar this year. So that's a brutal process. So she's gonna be out for 3 months to the extent that she stays with us. She is on a contract, temporary contract with us, I believe, Lydia, is what we have. So with that being said, I mean, it'd sort of be up to us if we wanted to bring her on. So that is an option that we have. And I didn't include that on here, but could be part of the conversation. So that's really what her week looks like, or her month, and then average hours a week look like right now. So she did take a lot of work off of my plate when she came on, which I was thankful for that. So this is the options that I have. And I know there's some sticker shock there. I'll walk through that and explain it. If we keep the same level of service and we just pay an outside counsel, I have this at $300 an hour. Let's say they work 40 hours a week times 460 hours. You know, that's 624,000 annually. And frankly, you know, you probably wouldn't spend that. There's levels, right? So, you know, if you did 40, you're looking at about 144K, just on average. Some months it would be looking more like 80 probably. But right now our outside counsel for us, I think last month, our land use folks billed 9 hours or something like that. And then, you know, depending on how many council meetings, if they needed to come to a planning commission meeting, I mean, the time does add up pretty quickly. And when you're at $300 an hour, which is, by the way, on the lower end, it's a median rate, that does get expensive, and there's some sticker shock there. So that's one option. The other option, interim city attorney, which if you could get somebody on a 1-year contract, you know, you could have somebody on board for a year, and then
I can't imagine it's gonna be easy.
probably not. And I just included that as an option.
Are there people that are trying to break into the city attorney gig that might?
There are, I would, without inserting my personal opinion, my professional recommendation there would be that's a bad idea, because unless you have some level of experience, it's not good just to put somebody solo into a city like this without.
I was more thinking of somebody who was kind of in your position of, I'm an assistant city attorney that's looking to get into the.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe
I
it's,
just don't know how many there are that are like that are.
it'd be difficult.
And that would just want a year.
Up their current role.
Yes.
Right. So that's a tough sell, but it's an option for council to consider. And then the assistant city attorney with duties as an interim city attorney. So I did want to have this conversation. You know, eventually we are going to need somebody as we continue to grow. And frankly, there is enough work here for 2 people. So what you saw on my hours doesn't get everything done. And it's fine. I mean, it's working fine right now, but it's a different level of service than other cities have. We're reactive. My office is reactive instead of being more proactive. So I mean, when you have a 1-person shop, it's sort of, you're putting fires out. And that's just kind of the nature of it. So there is, I can tell you, enough work. For instance, you know, one of the things that we did at the prior jurisdictions is we would review all of the RFPs and give input on that before they go out. That's just an example. Here, I don't get as much of an opportunity to do that kind of stuff. And I do think that there's some value to that as we go through these process. I do review all of our contracts. It's not as, I wish I had a lot more time to spend on that. But our staff, Craig's been doing this for
24 years.
most of your life at this point.
24 years.
So Craig, we do have, and Kristen as well. I mean, we have,
You could like be our assistant city attorney, is that what you're saying?
no, Craig, we have a staff that knows what they're doing and I have a lot of trust in them. So that it does make it a lot.
This is a good idea. It would be a permanent hire.
Yes.
They would, essentially, we'd still have one person working for the time you were gone, and then when you came back, we'd have.
They would stay, is the idea behind that. Why I bring it to council now is because it's November. And if this is the direction that council wants to go, we would need to know that sooner rather than later, because we would need to start a recruitment process. I'd like to have whoever that individual is in place 2 to 3 months before I leave, so we can left seat, right seat, they can get to know staff, they can start figuring out what our rhythm is as far as that goes, so.
Is your thought too that being, now it will be a shop of two?
Yeah.
So you could have complementary skill sets.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to hire somebody that does the exact same thing that I did. I would want to hire, for example, I'd want more land use, right?
That's what I was gonna
I'd want
say.
stuff like that. That's the skill that I would be looking for. And that's what we did. That's what most cities that have 2 attorneys do is they shop for, that's why I was hired at my last city, because I had a lot of litigation experience and the other person didn't. So there's some value to that. So you end up, it is a cost to the city, as far as that goes. We have a substantial outside council budget right now, but it would be more than that. So that's
So.
And
I know
presumably,
I'm ballpark, I never hold you to it, but how much do you think, because it's the 160 increase would be offset by having to use outside counsel less.
Yeah.
Right? So there's an offset there in terms of what the net cost is.
David, I think I had $65,000 to $70,000 budgeted for outside counsel this year.
Yeah.
And obviously my goal is to use as little of that as possible. But if we need it, it's there.
And then my thought would be going forward. After you come back, we had 2 attorneys. Go forward, outside counsel budget could presumably be lower because you would have.
We had I want to say
Multiple skill sets and more time.
the last jurisdiction, I want to say we had a $10,000 outside counsel budget and we did.
Those offers.
And remind me, when you go on deployment, the city is not paying you.
City does not.
So it's a wash if we were to have somebody fill you.
Yeah, I mean,
For that year, yeah, and
That, I was gonna ask that question too.
Yeah.
That's-
yeah, so. So there's, questions there to talk through and kind of get some direction. And we don't obviously have to we can't make a decision in work session. We don't have to make a decision tonight. I just want to get an idea of around the room, kind of what council's thoughts are on those. Certainly outside council's expensive. That 624 is sticker shock. I mean, that's a lot of hours. But that's.
And just remember, when it comes to, Ryan's department's under administration and we do allocate out our time to a lot of the enterprise funds. So this is not a direct hit to the 5-year forecast or to the general fund, because about, I'd say 40-50% of their cost is allocated out to whether it's the water fund, broadband, all the various funds that we
and I
have.
see
So
many assistant attorney would be the same, depending what their work wise.
Well, certainly at the interim, well, yeah,
Certainly the interim, yeah.
certainly the interim.
Yeah, and I think you were on my contract negotiation team. I don't do the health benefits or anything like that. So certainly if we were to hire somebody in, maybe
They
that
would,
would be a
yeah.
different scenario. So, yeah, I mean, a lot to think about. Go ahead, Taylor. I'm sorry.
That's all right. No, with this third option, would we still have, Emma? Is that's her name?
I would want to keep a law clerk. I would ask that we do that. I think that's a valuable thing for us to have.
Okay.
It's a no brainer, frankly.
And I like the idea.
Super cost effective for
Yes.
justice court.
Yeah,
Yes, yeah, I was thinking, in the future.
yeah,
Yes.
I just like that principle behind that whole program.
Then she
So
can
it's-
come back into the assistant city attorney.
I was gonna say that's not an option, right? I mean, because obviously she doesn't have the experience that you're looking for.
So let's not talk specifics about people. And I'm not trying to
Yeah.
slap a hand or anything. I think just generally speaking, if there's not gonna be a lawyer with some experience here, it's a tenuous position to
Yeah.
put a brand new attorney in a position like this. There's a lot of different areas of law that you touch. So it can get complex quickly.
So I was doing some simple math. I mean, if you divide 160 into 624, That's 3.9 years. I mean, just versus if we went outside attorney to cover this versus just bringing someone on board. Even if it was half that, it's still over 2 years, so. There's some logic in my mind to taking a path like this.
I like
Yeah.
option two or three.
Yeah.
I think two is gonna be more difficult to find.
Yeah.
Because who's gonna,
If you could find two, I would be in favor of two, because that could grow with the three.
That's
Trial for three, but if we can't find two, then I'm with three.
And that's not, I'm not gonna say it's not doable. The League of Oregon Cities did something similar with their folks over there. And it morphed into a full-time position. You know, I told Jamie over at the League of Oregon City, we were gonna try and take her people, and she didn't appreciate it.
Well, I thought it was a great idea, so I appreciate you trying.
Are there retired city attorneys that are looking to keep their foot in the game, or is that?
When you retire at
You're burnt out?
I mean, yes, like we had Alan, you know, Alan, and we still use Alan.
but he's retired.
Retired, and that's the thing, when somebody retires, I mean, they're not, no offense to Tim, but they're not gonna wanna take a call from Tim at 5 o'clock on a Friday afternoon, you know, it's like, they're gonna wanna be fishing somewhere.
Doesn't matter whether I'm retired or not.
Right, yeah. Right.
I mean, I think there's gonna be a challenge, we might, if, hey, three. I give it a coin toss, it will be successful. I mean, it's a tough slot to fill. Even if you pick three on that list.
I think one,
Because there's,
sorry, that we're done.
no, that's it.
I think one is like I wanna go to one. Like, if we can help it, that's to be an option of last resort, because I don't see any way we're using 10 hours a week as a joke. We're not, there's no way we're gonna keep it that low, and I don't think we can even go less 20, 30, I mean. I don't see how there'd be a gaping hole, and like, so now we're at the $600,000 mark pretty quickly. Just to do what we need to do, and that seems very wasteful.
Well, and your point about being reactive versus proactive, there's so much we could be doing to make it easier for all the departments to operate. For instance.
That's what brings back,
There's a lot of land use stuff coming down the pipe.
Yeah.
A lot of land use stuff.
it brings back a lot of reminders of when we were deciding to go with in-house and to stay with in-house. Is hearing from our department heads that they would have to really think about whether they wanted to pick up the phone and call outside counsel, because they know, you know, cha-ching, 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 where having in-house, they could just go down the hallway.
It is, I mean, I'd love to say that I'm able to answer every single email that I get every day, I can't. There's too much going on to do that, so, I mean, I do think eventually it will be necessary to meet our levels of service. Whether we're there now, I think is a different conversation, but it's an option going
I
forward.
mean, I think
But
it's,
also talking a year and a half, right, by the time we'd have two people, right, so they put there.
Yeah, I'm in favor of number three.
I think we put it out there, and if we don't fill it, then we have to
I
go. with
really
it.
got,
Yeah.
fingers crossed that we can find somebody.
I like number two, but number three would be the. that-
Of course, we're not voting, to give you staff some direction.
Well,
Are you?
Similar, I prefer number two, but probably number three, and my fallback position is half of number one.
So,
If I could.
to be really clear, the way that our charter is written, we don't need council to take a vote on this. The reason I wanted to come and talk with you about it is because you're gonna be working with this person. The way that the charter is written is I can and Keith can hire this person because they would be a city employee. They would work for me, not for council.
We have the budget.
That's it. So, but I'm coming because obviously I'm not going to hire somebody that you're going to work with that you wouldn't, you know, like that. So to the extent we go down this road, we have council consensus. I would ask that we have some of you at least involved in the interview process with that and be available.
Do you want to check those now?
I mean, how about you pick them? It doesn't matter to me.
Who would like to be part of it? Renee? Kim? Who's good?
Dan, do you want to be involved in it?
Sure.
Okay,
I like it.
So we got Renee, Kim and Dan, but you've got your committee, subcommittee, whatever you want to call it, task force.
Going back to something you just said, and then something you said earlier, is this person, like you said, would work for you, but while you're gone, Who are they working for?
Well, they'd be the interim city attorney, so I think the way the charter's written, it's a little complicated. I think it would be you, right?
Okay.
Because it's the interim city attorney, so I think the way that the charter is written, Keith can hire and fire anybody that's not an employee of the city attorney's office or that's not the municipal judge. The only person that I am responsible for is any employee of the city attorney's office.
Okay.
So that's the way that council decided.
So in absence of you, we would,
And keep certain checks and balances in place.
I like it.
Awesome. Anything else? Ryan, you got?
I think I got marching orders.
Yeah. All right, can I adjourn the meeting now?
Yeah.
Okay, the meeting's adjourned. Thank you, everybody. Next one.
Let's go.
We will start up in 5 minutes.
All we have is minutes to approve.
Some, you know.
No, we got 2 more meetings after it, so no.
Would be all sorts of stuff.
We have two.
We have some citizen comments tonight.
Work session on the second.
I zoomed in last one, you know, I didn't get the full experience. so-
You left early. Yeah, I think I'm done enough.
Looking forward.
You know.
We just a lot of it.